Who were the first Japanese? The Story of Japan by Linfamy. Indonesia game.
The very first people in Japan likely arrived in 35,000 BC from Sakhalin. There was an ice age at the time, so they probably traveled across a land bridge that existed between Sakhalin and Hokkaido. Now, just because they were the first people, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were the ancestors of the modern Japanese.
Okay.
It could be. Or it could be that they arrived, survived for a while, and then just died off. Like Brendan Fraser's career. Oh, Brendan. The ancestors of the modern Japanese came from two waves of migration. Migration 1 brought people who came to be known as the Jomon. Migration 2 brought the Yayoi. We'll talk about these people later. We're still unsure about who made up Migration 1.
I see they already had Shiba Inu, I guess, back then? Or some kind of ancestor to Shiba?
We'll talk about these people later. We're still unsure about who made up Migration 1. There are two competing theories. One theory, based on genetic evidence, claims that the very first people who came over from Sakhalin in 35,000 BC were indeed the ancestors of the Japanese. Researchers found that their genes are similar to the genes of modern Japanese people. A second theory holds that it was actually a migration from Taiwan and Southeast Asia. People were already living in Okinawa around 30,000 BC. The migrants came over by boat from Okinawa to Kyushu at around 10,000 BC when the Earth was just coming out of the previous ice age. This second theory is based on teeth shape. Did you know that Asians have two patterns of teeth? People from China to Northeast Asia, the backside of their upper four front teeth have depressions. They're shaped like shovels. They're also not aligned with the rest of the upper teeth. This teeth pattern is called synodonty. We'll just call it shovel teeth. People from Southeast Asia and Taiwan to the Philippines and Indonesia have smoother front teeth that are aligned with the others. This is called sundodonty. We'll call it non-shovel teeth. Today, most Japanese have shovel teeth, but in Hokkaido, they have non-shovel teeth. So the theory posits that a migration must have come from Southeast Asia to Taiwan, the Ryukyu Islands, and finally to Kyushu at around 10,000 BC. This theory is compelling because we know that people in Japan after this time had non-shovel teeth. And then there must have been a second migration of shovel teethers who were more successful. Probably because they ate all of the non-shovel teethers. No, that didn't happen. The people from this second migration must have then spread over most of Japan. That's another reason why this theory is strong, because we do have a lot of evidence for this second migration. Most researchers agree that Migration 2 happened at around 500 BC. People crossed the waters from Korea to Kyushu.
Recent, I guess,
These were the Yayoi people. They brought with them the practice of rice farming and quickly became the dominant population in Japan. We'll discuss these people in a later video. There is a lot of evidence for Migration 2, but the most interesting, I think, is the earwax study. Yeah, that stuff in your ears? There are two types of earwax, wet and dry. To see which type you have, stick a finger in your ear.
No.
Then pull it out. Then put it in your mouth.
I knew he was going to do that.
Wet. Your earwax type is determined by your genes. Might
as well put the finger up your ass and then in your mouth to see do you have dry or
wet earwax.
Do you have dry or
great example
studied
of
poop today?
Students involved in science.
Good way to check.
Student teams across 42 Japanese high schools carried out a study. Researchers gave the students nail samples from people all across Japan. The students extracted the DNA from the samples and isolated the genes responsible for earwax type. They then created a map of earwax types in Japan.
Probably not good, I assume.
Scientists already knew that the Jomon people carried the genes
I can't say I've ever been interested in testing my ears.
For dry earwax. The students' work showed that dry earwax is more common in Western Japan. This reinforced the theory that there was a Migration 2 and helped to show the path
earwax would be that important
to spread across Japan.
To tell
the Yayoi migrated from Korea or China and then moved east and north, replacing most of the Jomo. Again, I don't want you to think that there were only two migrations into Japan. People were moving back and forth all the time in and out of Japan. It's just that we believe the modern Japanese are mainly descendants of people from these two migrations.
Yes.
Before around 10,500 BC is what scientists call the Paleolithic period of Japan, or the Stone Age to us stupid people. They were hunter-gatherers back in those days. They moved where the big game animals were, such as mammoths and bison. Archaeologists
So there was
dug up
memos
all
even
kinds
in
of stone
Japan.
tools that they use: spearheads, blades, pounding and grinding instruments. There was a huge population increase between 16,000 and 13,000 BC,
Alright.
probably because the Earth was coming out of the last ice age and temperatures rose. People switched to eating more plants, either because all the big game animals were dying out, or PETA was just founded.
Good
This
one.
caused people to move less, resulting in larger and larger settlements. After the Stone Age came the Jomon period, which lasted from 10,500 BC to 300 BC.
That's a lot.
The word Jomon means cord pattern or rope pattern. The pottery of Jomon people had these markings of twisted cords, which they made by carving patterns on sticks and pressing or rolling them onto the clay. The patterns were simple at first, then became more elaborate over time. We'll talk about the Jomon in the next video, but here's something interesting about them. They were probably direct ancestors of Japan's indigenous people, the Ainu.
I've been watching Golden Kamuy recently. I'm on season 4 right now. If you haven't watched Golden Kamuy, watch it. It's about basically in 1905 or something, just after the Russia-Japan war. It's about a group of people, including Ainus, some of the remaining tribes, who are going after gold, basically. And it's like JoJo and Gintama into one, I would call it. It's amazing. Watch it.
There are not many of them, only 25,000 officially. They mostly live in Hokkaido. Until recently, they had their own separate culture, like Native Americans in the United States. However, today they've mostly been absorbed into Japanese culture.
That's basically one of the biggest thing in Golden Kamuy. It's like it's already at the point where a lot of the tribes are thinking that they aren't going to survive. And I guess this is what happened. Yeah, it's a bit sad.
New culture is awesome. They clearly look different from other Japanese.
Like weirdly, I know way too much about Ainu culture, at least from Golden Kamuy, because it's a show that really celebrates it. Like it's constantly teaching you about some of the legend, the gods, some of the way they eat and stuff like that. It's really, really interesting. Like, it's really good stuff.
They have wavy hair, lots of body hair, white skin color, and a different eye shape. After a certain age, men didn't shave. And contrary to most Japanese men who have thin
as you kiss your wife,
the Ainu have thick, full beards and mustaches. Think dwarves.
You don't kiss your wife.
Until recently, women had these prominent black tattoos on their face, hands, and forearms. These tattoos were started at a young age, and more was added as a woman grew up.
Basically,
they used a black suit from the fireplaces for the black color. A young girl only had a small dot on her upper lip. Over time, the tattoo grew until she reached maturity. The tattoos were supposed to repel evil spirits and ensure the woman's place in the afterlife. They were also associated with marriage and childbirth. Having a completed face tattoo is how you knew an Ainu woman has reached maturity and is ready for marriage. The pain from being tattooed was supposed to help women prepare for the pain of childbirth. This probably did not work very well.
It's funny because literally like the last episode of Golden Kamuy I watched yesterday was literally a childbirth Ainu way kind of thing, where there was like a lot of tradition things being done. It was interesting.
The best way to reduce the pain of childbirth is a few glasses of wine.
Like one thing, for example, was like, if it's a boy, I forget exactly, I think if it's a boy, they have to have the head come out first. But if it's a girl, I think it's the feet coming out first. It's some kind of like superstition thing of like, for like them to be blessed when they're born. It's very interesting.
The Ainu's tattoo use also suggests that the Jomon people thousands of years ago also had tattoos.
Damn.
Oh yeah. And the Ainu also had pet bears.
Yes, that's right.
Not lame-ass teddy bears.
That's right.
Actual bears. The Ainu worshipped animals as gods, and bears were the head of the gods.
The Kamui, basically.
They thought that gods came to Earth in disguise as
you got
bears.
yonked out directly?
What
does that make you?
Adult bears because the flesh and fur of the bear was an offering from a god.
I don't know.
And the sacrifice also allowed the god to return home. Bear cubs are treated differently. When they found a cub, they brought it home and took care of it.
And then they kill it eventually.
In some cases, cubs are treated even better than human children. They were fed human food. People
they sacrificed basically eventually.
If the cub did not yet have the teeth to eat food, nursing mothers would breastfeed them. The cub would live like a prince up until it became 2 or 3 years old. Then it would be sacrificed to allow the god to return home. Let's pick this up next time where we'll talk about.
And again, all I can say is that if any of this sounds interesting, watch Golden Kamuy because they teach you so much about the Ainu ways, and obviously, Like again, these days, I'm sure there's museum and stuff like that, but yeah, the Ainu are kind of done for the most part. And clearly, it's a show that it's crazy in many ways, but one thing that it does great is teach you a lot about the culture and stuff like that. So it's not forgotten, I guess. Very recommended. Golden Kamuy is top tier. Top tier. Here's the link. So yeah, very interesting video. I've obviously seen a good amount of stuff about like history of Japan since I'm interested, but not every part of it, especially not back in the ice ages and stuff like that. So we learned a bit. Very interesting. I like that. Alright. Like the only country I really listened to like a super extensive podcast about like the history of was China. Like it was maybe 2 years ago or something. Like I thought I don't really know much about China except of like Kingdom, about the Three Kingdom era, that manga, which is like historical fiction, I guess. So I found like a podcast which had like 300 episodes, all 1 hour, about like the entire history of China, and it was pretty interesting for the first 100. But at some point it just felt like it kept repeating. It's like new emperor guy is nice, so someone worse than him kills him. Then the new emperor is like the most evil person in history. He does war, he kills people, he does a lot of bad stuff. And then he dies, and then his children is bad. But then eventually someone nice gets the throne again, but then they die again. And frankly, yeah, like obviously, I think the guy wasn't too bad as a narrator or anything, but the podcast kind of like, yeah, and obviously it's the history of it, but they kept repeating the same thing over and over again, so I never actually finished the history of it. I only got to, over 100 episodes, I think, which was still like quite back in the day, maybe. I mean, I think I was close probably to the Three Kingdom period, which would have been interesting, but at that point I just felt like, yeah, in the podcast, everything was kind of like repeating and all that. So yeah, like the only country I've listened to like an extended podcast about is that, really. Yeah. But again, like I feel like I didn't really like remember that much. Most of the story felt like it was just repeating. Again, at least the way the podcast presented it, yeah. Like the main things that happened with the rulers felt like just the same thing, yeah. I would say.